So the first question is, how does youth civic engagement connect to the national election? And if we look, 4 years ago, we saw a significant number of young people organizing around the country for Barack Obama, for the Democratic Party. And it was largely through, that election in particular, sort of energized the youth base, actually on the Democratic and the Republican side. But we also see that the young people that engaged in various types of organizing, from calling centers to walking precincts to licking envelope mailers to, every facet of the the presidential election, we see young people participating at a higher rate than ever before. And so 4 years ago, we really saw a significant increase in the number of young people participating in particularly political forms of civic engagement. And, for a number of reasons, but we also see a significant number of youth of color participating in civic engagement, particularly political engagement. And this is particularly important because across the board, if you look at involvement in civic engagement, young people of color tend to be least likely to participate in any form of civic engagement. And so if we sort of fast forward 4 years into this recent national election, we don't see the same numbers, and we don't have a lot of data, but we certainly don't see the same numbers of engagement. But we do see different types of engagement among young people. For example, we see, while we don't see a large number of young people of color participating in this particular election, we do see engagement in other forms. So, for example, the Occupy movement, we see a number of young people that are participating and making their voice heard around our financial systems, and really feeling that young people have not been at the center of political and economic debates as it relates to their participation in our society. And so we see forms of civic engagement, but it may not take the form that we have been used to, particularly the same form of civic engagement that we saw 4 years ago in the national election. What we know about civic engagement across the board is that civic engagement, there's a greater likelihood for those young people who are engaged civically to go on to college, to do well in school. And I become more interested in really the relationship between civic engagement and well-being. And that's trying to understand how young people are active in their schools and in their communities, and if that action has an impact on how they see themselves and how they, and the type of mental sort of change. So, for example, a young person that may feel hopeless, a young person that may feel that they can't change anything, once they engage in forms of youth organizing or cleaning up a park or whatever it might be, does that engagement actually contribute to their sense of hope and their sense of purpose in life? And so those are, hope and purpose are important dimensions of well-being that I'm beginning to explore. The Circle has come out with a number of interesting studies that have sort of demonstrated and shown that activism and organizing certainly has an impact at the individual level, but we're not as sure about the impact of organizing at the sort of community and social level. But there are a number of interesting reports that have come out in the past probably 3 to 4 years that are really documenting the various kinds of impact that youth organizing in particular has on both individuals and communities. I think that where civic engagement starts, the third question is, how can educators and students and researchers initiate youth engagement work? I think that youth engagement really starts with an adult, or starts with a mentor, or starts with a teacher that has a deep commitment to social justice. And I was just actually in my son's class, English class, a couple of days ago, and he was reading and showing a teacher from a book in the time, which is about the Dominican Republic and Haiti. But what weaving into his lecture about the book were really critical political ideas about engagement, about democracy, about dictatorships, about people's role in determining their future. And so I think that educators, teaching civic engagement is not a sort of 1, 2, 3 cookie cutter sort of process. I think it really takes educators and adult mentors a real commitment to social justice in one's own. And in doing that, it has a greater impact and a reverberating impact on the lives of young people. And that educators can find to integrate sort of political education into their curriculum. Youth civic engagement is a very broad category, and I'm particularly interested in youth civic engagement is a broad category. I'm particularly interested in youth political engagement. And so when we look at the sort of umbrella youth civic engagement, there are a number of ways in which programs and educators can think about how they might engage students. And those strategies range from volunteering at a soup kitchen to encouraging their students to participate in things like the Occupy movement. And there's a range of strategies in between. Young people here in Oakland, there's a festival that happens every October where it's called Life, where young people use poetry and they use their graffiti art as a way to express political ideas. And so there are a number of ways I think that young people can be supported, directed,